let me ask you a question. Have you heard this term or this reference, food noise? Have you also heard that possibly these weight loss medications that we're hearing about left and right all over the place, the GLP-1 medications, can either eliminate or decrease the food noise? What is food noise? So I was recently inspired to do a podcast episode all about this, and I was graciously connected with an amazing, like I can't think of a better perfect fit for this episode today. And I'm super thankful for all of the people that I have met and connected with, as I said last week. Um, just in my Rock That Fitness business journey, the people that I've gotten to meet, the friends that I've connected with, and it's truly amazing. And this is similar because I have met Andrew Coates from Andrew Coates Fitness a few times actually, at the Raise the Bar conference that I've attended, and he connected me with this very, very special guest today that I have joining me. Her name is Dr. Christle Guevarra, and she is a board certified physician with a deep passion for helping people live longer, healthier lives through evidence-based metabolic care. And Dr. Christle has been working closely with women just like us, especially those in midlife, to navigate the complex world, of weight loss, hormone health, and longevity. So I invited her to the show today. Before I get into this, but I invited her to this show. I just want to say, I had a guest last week, and of course I have one this week. This episode turns out we're going to be doing two parts because it's just so in depth, so fascinating and interesting, and I think you're going to find a lot of value in it. So we decided that we're going to do two parts, and this is part one. And the other thing is that I don't do a lot of guest episodes. So if you're new here, welcome, first of all, welcome, and thank you for listening. I don't do a lot of guest episodes. I'm pretty picky about who I bring onto the show these days. So you know that this is very special. I'll probably be having another guest episode coming up the next couple of weeks, and then I'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming of just me and you. But I don't really have anything personally update to share with you. It's been a great summer so far. I hope that you've been able to relax and enjoy the summer. We haven't had an open registration for Rock That Fitness since spring. And in case you're curious, in case you're wondering, because I think sometimes y'all don't realize, or some people don't realize that listen, is that we don't have open registration year round. We close the doors and we are doing our thing inside of Rock That Fitness. And then when the time is right, we're going to open up registration again. So all that's to say, it's coming. We're going to be gearing up again for the fall. So get ready, because we're going to be doing our Jumpstart Challenge again in the fall. So I just want to let you know, stay tuned. It's coming. And then we're going to be opening up registration once again in the fall. I don't have exact dates yet. If you want to be first to know, then I highly recommend that you check out the show notes, because in the show notes, there's lots of links in there, and you'll be able to see exactly what you need to do to get on that priority list, whether it be the Jumpstart or open registration for Rock That Fitness membership. But anyway, please go check out the show notes, because there's always a lot of great things in there and lots of free resources to get you started wherever you're at. So if you don't know how to get started, what to do to get started, whether you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to shed fat, build muscle, get strong, we've got some great free resources in there. Check out the show notes. Okay, so getting back to Dr. Christle, I invited her on the show today to talk about all of this stuff that we've been hearing all over the place, right? The food noise and GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. And also, how these medications can help with food noise, help eliminate, help decrease the food noise. And so, what is that? What is that food noise? We're going to talk about that inside of this episode, but basically, that mental chatter that you're thinking about food all the time, wondering what you'll eat next, and battling cravings, and just feeling like you don't have control over thinking about food so much. That's food noise. And it turns out there is some real science behind it. So today we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about the food noise, how GLP-1 meds work to reduce it, and who these medications are really for. And then next week, we're going to be getting together to discuss even more. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper. So, are you ready, girl? Because this is going to be good. You're going to love it. So let's get into it. Dr. Christle, welcome to the show, girl. I'm so excited to finally have you on the show. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad we were able to make this happen.
Yeah, I kind of did an introduction already. I'm just super excited, and I want to give, first of all, I want to give credit to Andrew Coates, Fitness. Andrew, he's amazing. I've gotten to hang out with him a couple of different times at Raise the Bar. He is awesome. He's like the king of connections, and he knows how to connect people. So when I asked about this topic, he was like, yeah, I got the person for you. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming and helping us out with this topic today. Listeners, this is Dr. Christle Guevarra, and she is board certified physician with a deep passion for helping people live longer, healthier through evidence-based metabolic care. And I am going to actually turn this over to you, Dr. Christle, to kind of fill us in on a little bit more about who you are before we dive into this amazing topic. Tell us more about you.
Oh my gosh, where do I start? This could take a second. So, I grew up in California. I initially wanted to be a professor of chemistry. So I, did all the things. I went to and got into a PhD program in chemistry out at Wisconsin. And then I just sort of realized that what I wanted to do is actually manage patients. Like I actually wanted to interact with people instead of sort of being solo in a lab, under a hood. So I kind of made the painful decision to get my master's degree in organic chemistry. I started working on my prerequisites for medical school and ended up, going through medical school. I ended up spending an extra year in med school and doing a teaching fellowship, and did my residency in family medicine in Pennsylvania. Then I did an extra year fellowship in primary care sports medicine out in Las Vegas. And then we moved to Michigan to be closer to my husband's family and friends. And I sort of, it was the time of COVID. I was pretty lost in, that whole transition, and sort of kind of made my way, slowly back into practicing medicine. So I do a very small private telemedicine practice. And the majority of my time also is I'm the operations manager over at the RP YouTube channel. So I do a lot of non-clinical work, but I'm still involved in fitness, which, is definitely has a lot of overlap with somebody who is a primary care doctor who wants, health, with every single one of, my patients. So
yeah, well, that's amazing. You have a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. I love that you started out in the lab and realized that's not what you wanted, but look what you're doing now. Like all the things that bring you joy and serve so many people. So that's awesome. Telemed, can you just real quick, tell us what that means to you? Because that could mean anything to a lot of people.
Right. I, have a very limited amount of patients that I take care of. It is, overall care. I do the full, kind of spectrum minus, obstetrics. I don't, take care of pregnant patients anymore. I don't take care of children anymore, personally. So, but it's, everything involving like how to keep people healthy, making sure that they, get their colonoscopy, making sure they're up to date with their, mammograms, making sure they get coordinated and get their PAPs done. And then if they are sick, somebody that they can call to, talk about like, do they need an antibiotic? Do they not need an antibiotic? So, it's anything. I think that's the one thing that I really love about family medicine is that you just don't know what to expect. And so you're just, you just need to know enough about something and you need to know who you can reach out to, like who are the specialists in the game, and like when is it appropriate to refer out and why. Because I feel like a lot of physicians will just say, oh, this is a heart problem, go to a cardiologist and figure it out, versus like, hey, this person has, high blood pressure on 4 medications, still not controlled, not sure where to go from here, can you help?
Awesome. So you're like a real live medical doctor with all the
Yes.
things, all the
Yes.
things.
Yes. I mean, I've been in school for far too long.
Wow. Well, here's the reason why this topic came up is because, well, I was inspired by one of our clients asking
Yeah.
me about food noise. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, I guess it's something we've got to talk about because apparently it's all over the internet about food
Yeah.
noise. It's
Yeah.
always so entertaining and
Yeah.
interesting and amusing to me, the things that kind of start taking off on social media, the terminologies, the
Yeah.
trendy words. And this is
Yes.
just another one, like, the preoccupation with food cravings, the struggle to feel in control over food and that kind of stuff. So food noise. And I was like, and I know that there's also been this talk about these weight loss drugs, GLP-1 drugs,
Mhm.
that can reduce the food noise or eliminate the food noise. And so I don't like to be closed off to things. I like to
Yeah.
just like to be curious and learn
Yeah.
more and know what's really happening, because I had a guest on here not too long ago that discussed why we don't want to go on GLP. This was like, kind of early discussion about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And at that time, I kind of was more like not so open to it, to be
Yeah.
honest, but then I got more curious about it. And I don't want to be closed off to the possibilities that these drugs really do, I think, for the right person, they are
Yeah.
very helpful in terms of
Yeah.
health, well-being, and living life and, actively and fulfilled. And so I don't want to be closed off. So my
Right.
goal was like, what do we need to talk about today?
Right.
Let's discuss what this food noise is. Let's let our listeners have more of an informed decision about
Mhm.
what's best for them. And
Yeah.
so that's why I was looking for the person that could talk to this. And when I talked to Andrea about it, he explained a little bit. He said, yeah, she has actual personal experience with this. And I was like, oh my God, even better. Like this is so great. So
Yeah.
this is why I'm so excited that you're here to share not only who you are, what you do, but also
Yeah.
you have a personal story here.
I do. I do.
And so if you don't mind, before we
Yeah.
actually talk into the details of food noise and GLP-1, can you tell us a little bit about this particular part of your story?
Yeah. Yes. Happy to do so. There's we could almost take up a full hour talking about that. I have had, I noticed that I was a lot more hungrier compared to my peers ever since I was a little kid, ever since I was 2. I grew up next door. My next door neighbor, she was same age as me. We grew up together. She was on average, I would say about 20 pounds lighter, like the entire lifespan, from when I moved there at 2 years old till we stopped being friends at 18. But that's a different story. And so, and I remember her mom, amazing, and she would invite me over for dinner, every now and again, and I just remember, clearing my plate, and I just always remember her saying, like, hey, like, look at Christle. She's a prime example of the clean plate
Oh,
club.
the
Like,
Clean Plate Club.
yeah, like she has a great appetite. Like you should, and she was always encouraging her to, like, beef up her appetite, but for whatever reason, like couldn't do it. I remember at one point she was drinking like weight gain shakes with ice, like full fat ice cream in it, as a kid, just, and she was not underweight. She was just smaller for her
Mm-hmm.
age. Right. So, um, I grew up, always feeling hungry. I was sneaking food, and then I was feeling guilty about it because, the weight, I was a little bit, heavier compared to my peers. Doctors would, make mention of, like, you really need to watch your weight. My parents, my mom, would make comments about my weight. And so early on, I remember, like, thinking, like, I like getting candy bars or just like eating an unhealthy amount and feeling guilty about it. But like I couldn't stop myself. I think at one point I asked my dad to hide all the snacks in the house
Mm.
because he had a great relationship with food and was able to control it, and it turned into a big argument like throughout my entire life of like me trying to find a way to control my this hunger that like I seemingly can't control. um, did Weight Watchers, did all sorts of, crazy fad diets in high school in the late 90s, the cabbage
Mm-hmm.
soup diet. I tried, taking over the counter supplements to try and stave off weight, starved myself, all the things. And then, as sort of time went on in undergrad, I decided that, I wanted to be the best academically. And every time I tried to diet, quote unquote, very early on in high school, I realized that like my brain, like I was either preoccupied with food or I couldn't concentrate on my schoolwork. And I made the conscious decision, which was not a smart decision, mind you, that I was going to be the best at school at no matter what cost. So
Mm.
I stopped exercising. I started taking up smoking cigarettes. I was about a pack a day habit. And I started eating whatever I wanted. So a lot of high fat, highly palatable foods that were not very healthy and were very high in calories. So at my heaviest, I was about a little around 200 pounds. I think 198 was the official mark that, at Weight Watchers, but
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was doing. Like I had sort of like, kind of felt like, I took a week off to kind of like eat clean and then step on the scale at
Yeah.
198. So let's be real. Like I was probably a little over 200.
But for reference, like how
Yes.
tall are you? Like for reference here.
I'm 4'11".
Okay, that's something to note.
Right. Yes. Please. Yes. And so um, I, ended up in grad school in Wisconsin, and I realized that, like, as soon as I graduated from undergrad, I was like, this isn't sustainable. I need to learn how to be an adult. I need to learn how to cook for myself. And so I spent, 2 or 3 years trying to figure out, like, what's an exercise, routine that's going to look good for me or work for me. Like, what does a vegetable look like? I mean, like when I talk about behavior change, like that is the level of like granular, like, like getting used to the taste of vegetables
Yeah.
because, especially when you quit smoking,
Right.
your taste buds, alter. And so, started picking up lifting like in right before a couple years before med school. Did a huge diet right before like the first semester of med school and failed miserably. And then,
Wait, miserably in med school or miserably on the diet?
both.
Okay.
I failed medical school anatomy
Oh my.
because I was in such a deficit,
Mm.
and the food noise and the hunger, like I wasn't sleeping. My training was in the toilet. The food preoccupation was insane. I couldn't concentrate on school, and once again, I found myself like having to repeat, you know, anatomy and feeling like, oh God, I'm in med school. I can't
Wow.
control my hunger. I feel like the world's biggest loser right now.
Mm.
And why can't I do this? Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, found RP, started dating my husband now,
And
Dr. Mike
RP is
Israel.
because our listeners might not know what RP is.
Renaissance Periodization, RP Strength, is a fitness-based company. They have produced a lot of ebooks. Back in the day, they kind of sort of were the first to come out with templates, like Excel spreadsheet templates, on diet, on training, and now we have a YouTube channel. And so just kind of reading up on like how to balance things out. But even then, Mike realized that like my hunger drive was just a little different.
Different.
To the point where he actually tried to come up with these different
Wow.
templates
This is
that
so
failed.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
eating clean, eating a metric crap ton of vegetables to try and state like maybe I'm just not like doing it right, but like now my belly is bloated and I'm still hungry no matter how much clean food I'm consuming. So I failed a lot of weight loss drugs prior to getting on a GLP-1, and I too was against being prescribed a GLP-1, which
Hmm.
ironically enough, I've prescribed GLP-1s for type 2 diabetes. Like it's
Yeah,
no big deal. I tried, early on to prescribe Saxenda or liraglutide for weight loss. Every single time insurance denied it. And so I really didn't think anything about it when I was a resident. But for whatever reason, I had a lot of bias. I had a lot of
sure.
issues with myself taking this medication for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
I finally said yes in January of 2022. And for me, it changed my life.
I,
So
may I
yeah,
just want to,
please.
man, you have covered so many amazing things already. This is probably going to end up a two-part thing, I have a
For sure.
feeling. But the fact that you were with somebody who was an expert in nutrition and training, and yet you were still having all of these struggles and challenges that were way outside. You were an outlier, as we want to call it in
Yeah.
statistics, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's just a very valid thing to spotlight and to bring light to, because even myself, any coach out here, we're
Yeah.
like, no, no, no weight loss medication. And it's just because you're not getting enough protein. It's because your nutrition is not dialed in. And I actually have started to get more curious about some of my clients and
Yeah.
actually some people in my life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe perhaps we have this wrong. And some people really do have this insatiable hunger,
Yeah.
regardless of what they do. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to be closed off to that person. But I don't think it's everybody, but
Right.
I just think even coaches, if there's a coach out there, if you're listening, like, let's open up our mind and get curious about this, because it can be very frustrating as a coach to
Yeah.
think that you are giving and helping and supporting your client everything you know to do,
Yeah.
everything. And regardless of what they do, they are not making any progress. In fact, it almost sometimes feels like they're going backwards.
Yeah.
And so that's all. I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
that's a valid point. You meet Mike and he's doing these
Yeah.
things for you. And then all of a sudden it's like, you had an awakening. Even a doctor, you're a doctor prescribing this stuff for people, with diabetes. I,
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It wasn't until I realized and started paying attention to bodybuilders towards the end of prep, when they're sort of preoccupation with food. Like I know a lot of bodybuilders who have struggled post show with binge eating, this insatiable drive for calories, and I really started to think about what if I am that person post contest, but I am clearly not in contest shape. I'm nowhere near in a calorie deficit. Maybe this is just my genetic, like these are the cards that I'm dealt with. And
Yeah.
I'm just tired of trying to work my way around it. Like I've thought of all the mindfulness things, eating slowly, which I think is hilarious. Which I think is hilarious when coaches put it out there, because as somebody who is going through residency and medical school, I'm like, you're lucky if I can fit my Tupperware in my white coat pocket, or like I would like leave it out and like over a 24-hour period and pray that my chicken and broccoli wouldn't like expire. But like whatever, if it expires and I get sick, like at least I get to stay home from work today.
Yeah. Put your fork down every time you take a bite.
And then take a sip of water and then think about, like, write a journal entry
Oh my
about it. Like,
gosh.
no, it just, like
You did
I,
it. You did all the
right.
things.
I'm trying to think, struggling to think of something that, because they always like, what is it? The one thing that you didn't think of, like, is
Right.
there trauma in your life, which is, it is a very valid thing, but like, it just, I find that when I do talk to people about, coaches who have a lot of experience, but not, when they're first talking to me about my experience, they're trying to think of that one thing
Yeah.
that like I might have missed, which is totally valid. But, yeah, I've been
Yeah.
racking my brain for the last 41 years, 40 years, however long it's been. I can't do math
Yeah.
at this age.
I mean, I just think we're human, and there's only so much research that's been done. It's infinite, and there's so many
Yeah.
things we still don't know about the human body, the human mind, all of that stuff, neuroscience, all that combined. So
Yeah.
we have to be curious, and we have to leave these doors open and let people decide for
Yeah.
themselves. based on the information that we give them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about food
Yeah.
noise for a minute here.
Yeah.
We've been hearing these terms thrown around, and is it a real thing? Like, what is food noise from a clinical and biological perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're still trying to categorize that. I know that there have been, literature that's kind of taking that, like taking cues from social media to talk about that food
Yeah.
noise and trying to define it. But really, it's this like kind of just persistent, kind of intrusive, like describe it as intrusive thoughts about food. And they're, they are it's a combination of our environment, it's a combination of our genetics, which we can't alter, and there are psychological effects to this and biological effects to this, because like for example, when you smell bacon or like something delicious in a diner,
Mm-hmm.
you start to people can start to
Sure.
salivate a little bit more, they get a little excited, their stomach starts to growl, like
Mm-hmm.
those are things, those cues you can't control. So, there is some, basis. There's, this like this concept of willpower that I think really gets, kind of thrown around, especially for people who don't understand how this works. That you can't just like think your way out of it. So persistent, intrusive thoughts about food and wanting to eat is
Yeah.
kind of the way that it has been defined in literature. And I think that seems to be, correct me if you've seen otherwise in social media, because I am very protective of my algorithm. So actually also try and rely on
Yeah.
other coaches to kind of give me a finger on the pulse of like what social media does, because I do not want to get into that game. I'm sorry. Uh,
I
other
can't blame you a bit. I don't blame you one bit. And speaking of algorithms, I'm kind of a little bit on with you. I don't know what's happening with the algorithm so much, because the algorithm's going to show me things I don't even want to I don't want to see. I don't
Yes.
understand, because I'm a coach. They're showing me coach things. I don't want to see other coaches, and I see all other coaches. Like, this is so silly.
Yeah.
But I think that the thing that you said that stands out to me is that this isn't necessarily an emotional, logical, mental thing. It is also a physical thing. It could be biological, it could be genetic. I have known people, and in the past, I've thought, why is this person always planning for their next meal?
Hmm.
Like they're planning the next meal. They just finished eating and they can't wait for the next meal. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And I think some of that could also be trauma. It could be, they've had such scarcity with food when they were a child. Like, there's just so many different variables that it could be. So we can't
Yeah.
just say it is that.
Right.
That's the reason you don't have willpower, or it's because of the way you were brought up. Like, there's just so many things. It could be
Right.
genetic. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because when it comes to these medications, there's this idea that they reduce food noise. And so what's happening in the brain or the body? Does it really reduce food noise?
Yeah. That's a great question. The hypothalamus in the brain is kind of the kind of control center for hunger, and so the kind of thinking is that it really does kind of take that food noise, the perseverative thoughts about food, the planning of the next meal, thinking about tasty treats, and really bringing that down, really reducing that. And they do see, there are studies that show that the this preoccupation, they've also seen it in people with alcohol use
Mm,
disorder. They've also seen this in people who have smoking, um, tobacco use disorder. And so anecdotally, I have seen people who have struggled with food noise, and also smoke cigarettes, have their cravings have kind of decreased. And so yeah, the it makes it easier for people with those intrusive thoughts to now maintain either their calories, whether it's a caloric deficit or even at maintenance calories, because I noticed that you know prior to being on this medication, I know that there is some discomfort. There is some discomfort to being in a calorie deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess the best way for me to describe it is prior to being on a medication, it was at an 11. Like Mike told me once after I got on the medication, he finally like admitted to me that like after a diet or me trying to do a fat loss phase, like I would just get this glazed look in my eye when I ate, and I just wasn't like it was like almost this zombie like kind of look where I was just interested in getting as many calories as possible. And like he was like, I just kind of knew that like where this was going to end up going. And then it's me getting right back up to where I started, which if I was not on medication, I'd probably be 4'11" and somewhere between 165, 170 pounds, which seemed to be my settling point, could be like because of the choices that I made in undergrad. It could have been that was my genetic destiny, some combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
But, it wasn't until anything less than 165 that weight loss was just a struggle. Like this giant hill to climb where it would just, repeated episodes of failure after failure and just feeling like, oh, wow, I'm just broken.
Yeah. And so, are you able to explain,
Mhm.
maybe in layman's
Yeah.
terms, what's
Yeah.
happening? I'm curious, what's happening with the brain with the medication? Wh-
you know,
Can you
um,
say? Can you explain it in a layman's term?
the man, the so crosses the blood brain barrier. We do have receptors on the hypothalamus, and what the medication does is it mimics a hormone, the GLP-1 hormone, and is able to I guess really quiet that food noise. So when I take the medication, I just don't like I don't know, it almost I guess in layman's terms, it almost feels like food isn't this like hedonic, like pleasure seeking
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's like food, like prior to the medication, like, oh my God, food's amazing. I got to have a
Yeah.
lot of it. I got to have like this thing. And it doesn't matter what you put in front of me. It doesn't matter if it's chicken breast or broccoli. I'm going to have it. I'm going to demolish it. And I'm going to want that next thing. And I
Yeah.
don't care. I'm going to pretend and smile like everything's okay. But deep in
But
my head,
inside,
it's like, no, everything's not okay. You need more food. And
interesting.
instead, now it's like, okay, this is a chicken and breast, with broccoli. This is great. Here's a piece of cake. Like this is an okay food. This is delicious, and it's you can eat like you can have a couple bites. If you're full, you can like push the plate away, and that's what I do now. It's like this. I don't want to say antidepressant with food,
No,
but it's just it.
it's normalizing it,
It's
like
yeah.
quote unquote normalizing it.
It's just now this thing that doesn't become an emotional struggle. I don't have to sit there and put a lot of this overwhelming amount of effort to try and control my appetite, my portion control. I still have to work at those things. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, I take the shot and everything's roses. I
Yeah.
still have to do the work. I still have to be mindful to ingest appropriate amount of water. I have to make sure my fruits and vegetables are on point, my protein is good, and I have to make sure that I'm actually eating my meals now, like I'm not starving myself.
Yeah.
But man, it's this like I can sit at the table and just like be okay with food. I can have a conversation with people at a restaurant and not be preoccupied with how hungry I am, how I'm pretending like everything's okay when it's not.
Yeah.
How do I look like a normal person? Like, because I would probably just be shoveling food, like I don't have any of that anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Man, I appreciate you being just so vulnerable and just really sharing the truth and the facts and what you've experienced. And I want to mention something here that you're talking about, the receptors in the hypothalamus, right?
yeah,
And so receptors, for people listening, just so you guys can know, like your body has receptors all throughout your body,
yeah,
and hormones are all kinds of hormones, not just sex
yeah,
hormones, it's hormones that trigger processes of your body, everything that
yeah,
happens. You have receptors, which is like these they all have different shapes.
Mhm.
And so when these hormones are sent out, they connect into that receptor. They fill in that receptor in that
Yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
And so that's what triggers or
Mhm.
stops or whatever that's going to happen in the body. But it's fascinating to me that you said that, because the possibility, it sounds like the possibility that some humans can have more receptors
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
others in the hypothalamus, maybe more. Or you're not putting out enough, your body doesn't produce enough of the
Yeah.
GLP to fill in those receptors. So anyway, I'm just fascinated by
Yeah.
that because I love science and it's
Yeah.
so fascinating to me.
It is, and it's actually really forced me to think about neuroscience and biology and behavior. The brain was always also something that like just seemed like a foreign concept because it's like I never, until I like the heart is really easy to see. It pumps blood. It's a very like
Yeah.
neuroscience always just felt like this nebulous concept of like
Yes.
here are these area like theoretical areas of the brain and like I'm just like
Right.
but how do you know like the with a bone that it's got structural what its job is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always found
Yeah.
it to be a very like kind of challenge for me, especially as somebody who loves like math. Like I want to see the like the proof
Yes.
on
Yes.
paper.
I love it too. And I love to see the research that's being done in neuroscience because it says so much about fact. Like there's actual proof. There's studies that are done that show what kind of things are happening in the brain to create behavior change, to create these
Yeah,
habits. And I love that it's actually scientific. It's not woo
yeah,
woo. Like it's just
yeah,
not. So anyway, I wanted
yeah,
to just bring that attention to that. So let's talk about these GLP-1s.
yeah,
I have questions that I know a lot of listeners probably
yeah.
have.
Please.
Um, what is the role? Okay, well, we already know the role of the GLP-1, right? Like these are things, this is a hormone that your body produces
Yeah.
that helps to satisfy this food noise, hunger,
Yeah.
cravings, all of that. But what is this other thing I'm hearing about? Like, what is GIP? And what explain to us, because you're going to hear things like we hear these words
Yeah.
GLP receptor agonist.
Yeah.
And I know, like, when I get in the weeds, but
No,
I want to
no,
know.
no, and
Educated people want to know
yeah,
this stuff.
totally, totally. And it can be, and I know a lot of late, kind of the social media just says GLP-1, and
Right.
technically that's not, if we want to be, very technical about it, it's not exactly, exact, terminology, but, yeah. So both, uh, the GLP-1 and the GIP are two hormones that peptide hormones. It can be a peptide and a hormone that our intestinal tract produces, right? So you ingest a food, and they did studies back in the 60s to kind of figure out how this is all working. So like another thing of a common myth is like we just discovered these yesterday. Like no 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 no
It's
no no
been
no
around.
no. Like it's been around for decades. So when you ingest food versus when you or ingest glucose versus whether or not you inject glucose into your into your veins produces much different results. So you have the intestinal tract detects that there's food coming down the hatch, and the cells in the intestine decide to release GLP-1 and GIP, which have very similar but some sort of different properties. And so it does a couple of things, right? Because, like you said, there's receptors everywhere. So this hormone needs to go through the bloodstream and send a signal, attached to the receptor, and then from there it sends, does further signaling to do things in the body, right? It's a whole field of whole field where it's just sending out signals through the bloodstream, landing on a receptor in the body, and then it does magical signals. So it, there's receptors on the pancreas telling the pancreas to release insulin because, hey, we've got food coming. Like,
Yeah.
let's store it. Let's do all sorts of cool things with it. Um, and it also slows down gastric emptying, which is part of the reason why people do end up feeling, satiated. But then they also discover that it crosses the blood brain barrier and also, can affect the hypothalamus, which also regulates, hunger through ghrelin and leptin and
Yeah,
all
the other
sorts of other,
hormones.
yeah, yes, hunger, ghrelin, and so that's just a small amount of things, tasks in which they both can affect. They can affect heart rate. They can affect in addition to gastric emptying, they can affect acid production. So all sorts of different signals that it can affect in the body.
Yeah. Well, can you tell me what's the difference if I said, what's the difference between GLP-1 and GIP? What's the difference?
Off the top of my head, the the GIP, and I always struggle with the whatever the long term terminology is for it.
Mm.
So it actually just doesn't really,
It doesn't matter really.
yeah.
I guess I'm asking because I know
Uh-huh.
that there's these brand names of the medications, which I'm just going to throw out there here in just a minute. There's their brand names, and there's the generic name, and there's the class. And so some of these are in the class of just GLP receptor agonist,
hmm I think the
and
GI
some are
one
dual, like they have
definitely,
GLP-1 and GIP.
definitely. The GIP is does not affect the I want to say the gastric emptying, because and the reason why this is important is because for the dual agonist there seems to be less acid reflux going on with it.
Okay.
So they also, yeah, so GIP has like really little effect on that. So when people talk about one of the biggest side effects of the GLP-1 agonist drugs is acid reflux, kind of these sulfur burps.
Mm-hmm.
People who usually a lot of people tend to those people tend to fare better with the dual agonist. So it's not just affecting the GLP-1 agonist. There's a little bit of an effect on the GIP agonist. And so that seems to, do a little bit better. Like they seem to report less, acid
Digestive
reflux.
problems. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so for just to simplify,
Yeah.
for simple terms, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds to me that if they are doing just a GLP-1,
hmm
they could have all of these side effects
hmm
that affect their gastric emptying in
hmm
some kind of way,
hmm hmm
nausea,
hmm
vomiting, diarrhea, blah blah blah, you name it, and acid reflux. But if they are doing something that's more of a dual, then the GLP-1 and GIP tends to be the better option for people that have those kind of conditions. Is that kind of the simplified way to look at it?
Yeah, I think that is a simplified, and I don't think that's a I don't. I'm just always struggling to find the red team. Like somebody's going to hear this clip and be like, "Oh, well, I think that's a pretty, decent way of looking at it. Just because that usually is the route that people go. If you have a lot of GI side effects, the next place to go is the dual agonist, or just jumping to a dual agonist.
Yeah.
For some people, just bypassing that entirely, which
Yeah.
both
Well,
have its merits.
to put us at ease, we've got
Yeah.
great listeners, and they
Yeah.
are very curious too. And I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody's following me, they're not they're not that kind of person. They're not like they're not the negative Nancy. They're like, oh, this is very interesting. Oh, that makes sense. They're really cool people. Okay, so all right, Rockstar listeners, you know
Yeah.
who you are. But okay, let's talk about. I'm just going to name these off
Yeah.
real quick. Okay, just so
Yeah.
people can understand. Ozempic, Wegovy,
Mhm.
those and so Ozempic and Wegovy, those
Yes.
are the injections of the GLP, correct? And typically
Yes.
they're usually subscribed for type 2 diabetes or chronic weight management. Does that sound right?
Yes. So the Wegovy is FDA approved for weight management, chronic weight management. Ozempic is FDA approved for type 2 diabetes.
Gotcha. And then there's this other one. I don't even know if I've ever heard of it. Ribelsus. Am I saying that right? Ribelsus. Anyway, it
Ribelsis.
says it's a semaglutide, but
Mhm.
it's an oral form
It
for
is.
type 2 diabetes.
It is. You take it once a day. You take it before, like, I think an hour before meals with like X amount of water. It there are pros and cons to it. It tends to not, it could be very variable. It's always a people seem to be averse to needles, which is understandable. So,
Yeah, so
um,
it's another form.
yeah.
And then the other two that I have here in my notes, Mounjaro and
Mhm.
Zepbound, which the
Mhm.
generic name is um, tirzepatide. Did I say it
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the dual GLP-1
Correct.
GIP receptor agonist. And the Mounjaro is typically prescribed for type 2 diabetes, and then
Yes.
the Zepbound is chronic weight management.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I just wanted to put that out there because
Yeah.
for everybody out there just saying GLP, GLP. Well, let's talk about what the heck this is.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Yeah.
this?
Right. And I know that now they're coming out, the pharmaceutical companies are coming out with vials to kind of help, bring the cost down because,
Hmm.
um, you know, I, I mean, I figured this was the case. A huge part of the reason why the drugs are so expensive is because of the way it's distributed in the
Okay.
pen. I guess the formulation, in order to be, to kind of work, the delivery device, for the Ozempic and the Manjaro. I'm also assuming for type 2 diabetes, the pen, you're able to adjust the dose. So there is a click, and then for Wegovy and Zepbound, they're like a one-time use. Like you just inject the whole thing.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
Like what? Once a week?
once a week, yeah.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
but like you can't adjust the dose. It is what it is. It's going to deliver all of that medication into your body, and then you throw it. Dispose of it.
Okay.
But that is a lot more expensive than just putting it in a vial and having the patient have insulin needles on hand and drawing it.
True.
Yeah. So apparently that's a lot of money, which I can get.
Yeah,
I
right.
understand, but
Right. The production and all that shipping and the way it is. Yeah.
yeah.
So because we're talking about these medications, there's also what I see on social media. I've seen this too. People are selling a supplement that supposedly does the same thing. Is this true? And can you maybe shed some light on that?
There have been
That
a couple of supplements that mimic GLP-1.
Yeah, they're selling these like this is the answer to your weight
No,
loss.
unless it is really like the GLP-1 agonist in a pill, like a supplement pill form. There's just no way to go around it. So there's no supplement like boosting your GLP-1 is like that's a nice like pie in the sky like wish, but that's just so there's
Dream on.
right. So the problem with saying that is so the huge problem with these hormones, and I forgot to mention, is that the half life of your natural GLP-1 hormones is actually just a couple of minutes. It's
Hmm.
not that long. What happens is
Hmm.
you have an enzyme called DPP4, and it kind of wanders in and alters the structure of the hormone, and now the hormone is completely inactive. It can't bind to the receptor, it can't do the job of what it wanted to do, and so that's it. That's the so couple minutes. And so these drugs are shaped in such a way that it can evade this DPP4, hang around longer in the bloodstream, and go and attach to the receptor and do its thing for a lot longer than what we can naturally produce.
Okay. Well, it's just because I have seen these things, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring light to that they're out there, especially on TikTok, and they're selling these things.
Yeah.
Also, that this stuff is available, like supposedly, to just your everyday person.
Mhm.
To Is that true? Is this available to the everyday person? Can they just order this stuff, buying it? Like people are getting it, so
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. People are you can people are finding a way to do that on the gray market, or for like research purposes. So I've seen that before as well. There are telehealth companies that are able to compound it and make it, a compounded version that, for a very cheap price. Unfortunately, that has a lot of pros and cons to it. So
yeah.
people are able to get this drug, which I guess leads to all of these TikTok kind of reels, kind of promoting it, so
Yeah.
yeah, the answer
TikTok
is yes.
creators, just
Yes.
people out there selling this stuff. And so that leads me to, I know we're getting short on time here, but
Yeah.
which means we're probably going to do another episode, which will be
Yes,
great.
of course.
I appreciate your willingness. But can we just go ahead and talk about who the ideal candidate is
Yeah.
for the GLP-1? I think this, if nothing else, I think we really need to
Yeah.
discuss this before ending this episode.
Yeah.
Because it's not just for people with obesity or diabetes, right?
Right.
There's other options, like obviously. So can we talk about who it's ideal for? Who are the
Yeah.
ideal candidates?
I mean, do you want me to make mention of the FDA, stuff, because the FDA says that, if you do have a BMI of over 30, or a BMI of over 27, with some comorbidities such as high blood pressure,
Right.
high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, like you qualify under the FDA, you are a candidate for these drugs. Insurance will cover it. That's also a talk in and of itself. But I also think it's worth actually talking to the patient, thinking about their, previous history with dieting, what their experience has been. How do you react? Are you constantly craving, food? Do you, and so the ideal candidate is somebody who is willing to kind of think about weight loss and chronic weight management as this is a lifestyle overhaul, and I'm open and willing to do what it takes, or at least explore my options, and figure out a way to navigate forward, with this medication, potentially without this medication, and kind of just, yeah, somebody who's has
Because of their
always
health.
struggled. Right, because of their health. And so, yes, because of their health. And I think it also gets into the kind of area of like, I want to say, like, initially, I think it's okay for people to want to make changes based off of, things like vanity, which seems very superficial and like icky to talk about. But I also think it's, when I was at 190, like I still wanted to look different. And I felt like I was really embarrassed about admitting that. And I
About
had,
wanting to have the aesthetics.
or having a little bit of some sort of aesthetics, whatever that looked like to me, and but always having to justify, like, oh, I have joint pain, oh, I'm snoring at night, which is true, oh, like I can't, move as well as I used to, or like
Like
all
always
these.
trying to put it on a health reason rather than what's wrong with wanting to
Right.
what's wrong with wanting to feel good
Right.
about how we look,
Right. And
right?
yeah, and so I felt like with the fitness industry, like it was always people like really like hammered down on like, wanting to look a certain way, or like wanting to have some sort of, think about the aesthetics part of it is like this icky,
Like
gross
yeah,
thing.
like that's
And
bad. That's
it's
wrong.
really terrible. And it's coming from people who like don't have a double chin, don't snore at night or struggle with like poor sleep, like it just, who are wearing a bikini while saying it on social media. And I'm like,
The
shut
worst.
up. Gosh. Oh yeah, I remember being very
Yeah.
angry for a good decade, that I was in medical training. Just the things that I would see on social media about fitness, I'm just like, oh gosh, like you don't know
Yeah.
what it's like to be in this body. I
Yeah.
promise you, if you like had my lived experience, if I could just go into your brain and like kind of just squeeze on your hypothalamus a little bit, and like just try and like be a great doctor while you're thinking about food 24/7, and then wondering why you can't control yourself, like I promise you,
Yeah, because
you're gonna
that's
see
just a
otherwise.
when somebody is feeling that way, like there's got to be a lot of sense of shame and guilt to have to want that, to desire that, like is something bad or wrong. And yeah, this is one of those areas too where I just feel like why are we putting these parameters on
Mhm.
this? It's whatever you want for yourself, girl. You want to look great? Go do that. It's nothing's
Right.
wrong with that. Who told you? Because this is all messages we grew up with, right?
Right.
But
Right.
getting back
Yeah.
to who this is for,
Yeah.
ideally, definitely for sure, somebody whose health is at risk. Absolutely. If this is something that could change their life because their health is at risk, why not? Of
Yeah.
course. And then, so that does bring me to the question, what about women over 40 who are struggling with their weight, but they're not technically obese? And what are the risks of using these meds in people who maybe have a normal BMI?
So, I always struggle with this because BMI is great for from a population standpoint, but I always think of the individual in front of me, and I'm trying to think of
Like me. Have
yes,
you seen
yes,
my BMI? It's
right,
it's it's borderline high.
I know. I'm 20, I actually just calculated my BMI this morning. It's 29.3. Technically I'm overweight, right? So,
Yeah.
it the you get into very dangerous territory when you start thinking about people who are of a normal BMI. I think the risks of that, you do have the side effect profile. You can very much get, there are definitely some adverse effects to watch out for. Um, the am I promoting an eating disorder? I really think it depends. I don't like if your BMI is more on the normal to underweight, kind of side. I can't definitely would probably not recommend that, this medication for them. But I really want people to understand that um, I find it less about taking a look at their numbers and being like, okay, your BMI is 30, therefore you should be on this medication. Like, I want to know how have you done things in the past? What has your history been like? And
Yeah.
so for people who have failed diets and figuring out why, people who struggle with, what do you think take me through a day? Do you struggle with, do you plan your meals and get really excited about the next meal as you're eating this meal? Have you have you been bigger in the past? Have you lost a lot of weight? Have you had success with that or
Yeah.
not? So I wish I could give you this is
Yeah.
the answer. And I'm just not that gal for the one liner.
No, that's exactly what I would expect from a doctor that knows what's going on, is that it's going to be very individual.
Yeah.
It's going to be up to the doctor and the individual, and getting into the details of that person's psyche and their life and their history and genetics. All of that plays in a
Yeah.
role. And so, I think I'm just thinking about the person that's always trying to lose the last 5 to 10 pounds, and they haven't changed their lifestyle first, and they're not dealing with food noise,
Yeah.
but they have things going on, maybe
Yeah.
because of whatever they've been taught. They don't know, they
Yeah.
don't have the knowledge.
Yeah.
That kind of person, does that make sense?
Yeah.
But again, it's find out if that's you, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, I've been trying to fight off, this last 10 pounds. I'm not trying to make fun of you, but if you're thinking about using one of these medications to do that, I highly recommend that you consult a doctor about it
Yeah.
to see if
Yeah.
it really is the thing for you.
Yeah, and I always struggle with the last 10 pounds comment because a lot of times if you actually dig into the weeds of what it is they want, just from an aesthetics point of view,
Yes.
what you really need to do is actually build muscle.
There you
Like,
go.
what you really that's what you're really
Yeah. That's
thinking
what they really
about.
want. Yeah.
That's
They
what they
don't
really
realize
want.
it. Right. Right.
And I don't want you to be 60 years old with, some chicken wing arms where it's no muscle. There's a lot of skin, and you're, coming to me. And I've had this happen before with,
Sure.
older women who have starved themselves, smoked cigarettes in the 90s, and didn't do any resistance training. They're like, how do I get my arms? They'll wave their arm at me.
Yeah.
How do I, do this? And I'm like, you have to build muscle. I
Yeah.
don't and you're actually going to have to eat. So
Yeah. It's a whole thing. This is the stuff that I talk about every single day about muscle. Muscle is key. And those last 10 pounds, that last 5 pounds, most women are starving themselves and they're doing too much cardio. Nobody's doing any resistance training. Those women are like thinking that that's what they need to change. But let's get back to this. This is going to be my last thing to
Oh,
wrap
okay.
this
Yeah,
up. And
totally.
then I really hope we can schedule the next one. Where I think, so here's the question. Do
Yeah.
people need, when somebody does go on this medication for whatever
Yeah.
reason, what happens? I mean, is it forever? Is it forever? Is it forever for some people and it's not forever for some other people? And what happens if they stop taking them? What can they expect? A risk of weight gain?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. If the food noise and the intrusive thoughts and you're doing all the quote unquote right things, are, what's preventing you from either eating at a calorie deficit for a small amount of time or eating at a maintenance calorie, that's going to work for you, then, and if these drugs manage that food noise, then we are looking at, yes, this is for chronic weight management. So it's potentially
Chronic.
forever. It's
Right.
chronic. And that's okay. And I also want to like just make sure that, and I always kind of frame it like that because I don't ever I always like to under promise and over deliver and normalize the fact that like needing to be on this medication for life is not a like moral, like you did not fail at life. You're not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I want to stop, you know, I want people to stop feeling bad about that. There are cases where people have stopped taking the drug and have done okay. I don't have too many cases don't see too many cases of that personally. Um, and the literature supports, the idea that, over a long period of time, once people get off the medication, they'll gain most of the weight back. Majority of the people will gain majority of the weight back.
Do you think that's because they took the medication and they didn't do any lifestyle changes to support the changes that their body was going through?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
And that's going to be in the next episode.
Yeah.
No,
A great way to end it. Leave it on a cliffhanger.
but for real.
Um,
No, and just because the other thing that you said that stood out to me is because I hear this a lot of times from
mhm.
people that are, whether they're a potential client or they are a client, they're like, I want to do this the right way. And I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to go on a weight loss medication. I want to do this the right way. It's like that
Yeah.
what you're
You're like,
saying,
oh,
like, let's just take the guilt and shame. If it's something that you need that's going to be helpful overall for your well-being and your
yeah,
health and your fitness and your aesthetics
yeah,
that you want and it works, like we've got to take that like out, like that judgment,
yeah,
just remove that.
yeah.
It's just going to be dependent on the individual. And
Yes.
I guess I just want to say, like, let's stop judging it. Let's get judgment out of the way. I'm here to get
Right.
judgment out of the way myself, you know?
There's plenty of reasons to get angry on social media, and I get it. Because you have people at a very normal to low BMI promoting these things and like, this is how I did it, and like with no context at all. And so that rage bait, kind of, messages are out there, and I get it, but I'm not here to, kind of jump in and play along with that kind of algorithm. I really do want people to at least talk about it. There's no shame in asking questions. There's
Yeah.
no shame in like having a conversation. Go to your doctor and say, hey, is this right for me or not? And have that conversation. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm always going to promote that,
Yeah.
because if you don't have that conversation, how do you know if it's good for you? I don't know, because
Exactly.
I don't know these people. I don't know these people who are listening. Like it could be very life changing. It may not be the drug for you. You're going to have to go to your, doctor and have that conversation yourself. And I wholly encourage that. Please do.
Yes, I do too. And I think just knowing that, you've got to I'm speaking to all of our listeners. Let's remove the judgment and some kind of idea about shame and guilt about a medication that could be so helpful to many people. It just don't like, there's no shame in asking the question.
Yeah.
Discuss it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about this.
Yeah.
It's not going away. Let's
Yeah.
just talk about it.
And I find that the more I talk to my patients about the whole journey and not just the medication, just in general, like how things are going, what's going on in your life. I get more information out of that than like, oh, how was your diet today? Or did you go to the gym 4 times this week? Did you hit all your reps, on your workouts? Like, and then looking at your weight trend, it's just like, how, what's going on? Like, what'd you do this weekend? Who'd you hang out with? Where did you go? Did you go see the movies? Did you hang out with family? Like, how was family? Like, how did you navigate eating? Was it tough for you? Do you have family support? So yeah,
Yeah.
like
So much more than just the medication and what are you eating? It's
yeah,
beyond that. I mean, it's understanding where the quote unquote food noise comes from. It may not be anything to do with your receptors. It could just
right.
be that you were trained as a child to think about food all the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
It could be that
exactly.
simple. But anyway, I will bring us to a close right now. Dr. Christle, I appreciate you so very much today. This has been so great. Where can our listeners find you, and if they want to follow you on what platforms?
Yeah, we do have the Renaissance Periodization YouTube channel. So it's my husband. His language is a lot more colorful than mine.
Yes.
So just come with a warning. And then on Instagram, I'm Dr. Christle, Christle.
Yep, it is spelled
Yep.
differently.
And so
Christle.
yes, and I am not on TikTok or any of the other social media platforms. So that's kind of, yeah, where my social media kind of like it ends there. I don't
Yeah,
have time for TikTok.
understood. Well, next time we get together, I hope that we can talk um, more about, I guess, more about the lifestyle thing, alternative
Yeah.
lifestyle, integrating this fitness and into your life while you're on the medications.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe some other things having to do with maybe side effects, how to manage. So we'll get into those things. And I just, man, thank you so much for just your generosity to
Yeah.
truly just share your own personal story with us, because I just know that that alone, coming from a doctor, is just going to be probably mind blowing and very helpful, very useful.
Well,
So,
well, thank you. I spent a majority of my life in doing school, and I think school was a big part of my coping mechanism. Like if I couldn't control my hunger, I'm just going to be really
yeah,
good at school, and like maybe that'll make up for it.
sure.
And it didn't. It
Yeah.
really didn't. So I just got tired, and I felt like people needed to know that like you can't outrun like biology. There are just certain parts of your biology that you can't run from, and we have solutions out there, and they can be very powerful if you know with the right tools and with for the right person.
Yeah. And with guidance and being overseen by the proper expert in the field.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Dr. Christle. You rock,
Thank you
girl.
so
You are
much.
so awesome.
Oh my
I'm like beyond thankful and so honored that you came to be on the podcast with us today. And I look forward to having you on again.
God. Ooh, can't wait. Can't wait.
All right. All right, rock on.
Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in again today to our podcast. Thank you for listening. It is such a privilege and an honor to be alongside you in your health and your fitness journey. Remember to check out the show notes. There's always some free resources in there, and I don't want you to miss out on anything new that's coming up in Rock That Fitness. And if nothing else, just remember this: you are a rock star fit woman, and you deserve to give yourself the best opportunity to succeed, lasting and true change in your health and your fitness. If you found value in this today, please share it with somebody. Leave us a 5-star review or any kind of review if you found value in the podcast today or in any of our podcast episodes. And then always remember, self-care, self-love, all day, every day, in all the ways. So stay strong and rock on.